Hello everyone, welcome to India Sportsbiz Talks. Today we have with us Mr. Tenzing Niyogi, CEO of Ultimate Kho Kho, a sports league based on a years old traditional sport from India called Kho Kho, all set to launch in 2021. With Tenzing's experience across consulting, business development, operations, and sponsorships to now CEO, we discuss his role in the revival of indigenous sports such as Kho Kho. Let's dive into it. Right. Tenzing, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
To dive right into it, what in your words is Ultimate Kho Kho and what does a day-to-day look like?
Well, it's been a fabulous journey since the inception of when we started conceptualizing the league in way back in 2019, and we got in touch with our investor, which is Mr. Berman from Dabur. In his personal capacity, he wanted to sort of become the promoter of a league which is as indigenous as Kho Kho is, and he wanted to promote the sport of Kho Kho across India, and he found a lot of value in it. A big hand to, of course, the federation as well, who've been very, very dominant in terms of promoting the sport recently. And we sort of got in together. We believed in that product. We thought that it was a high impact, fast speed sport, which can be created into an arena sport in India, which is, we've seen the likes of Kabaddi doing the rounds since 2014. And since then, of course, it's been a huge and a long journey with, connecting with the federation in terms of players, as Kho Kho enjoys a massive, massive popularity across the rural India. There's a huge amount of players who are there, both boys and girls, men and women. Now, in terms of accumulating that data and putting it across into a digitized format where we know exactly what the statistics are, was one of the key criteria in order to develop and understand who are the top 200 sportsmen in Kho Kho. So that's been a huge journey. And me and my team, we've sort of digitized the whole piece. We now have accumulated data of over 500 top Kho Kho players across India. And that has been one of the bigger achievements for us, to be honest. The other bit, of course, was, creating the format. And we knew that, of course, Kho Kho being a fast-paced product, we had to create a very compelling format, which is, shall I say, attractive to the TV audience, because at the end of the day, that is what matters from a remote viewership perspective. And we got into that. We called in the top 85 kids in Talkatura in 2019, early 2019. And we shot them. With a new innovative format. We tested a few things. We actually tried shortening the court. We shortening the poles, so on and so forth. A lot of permutation combinations were there. A lot of camera angles were figured out then as to where it looks better. And so that's been, again, a constant journey. And we finally finalized on the format. It's a very compelling format at this point in time. The other part, of course, on a day-to-day basis that a nascent league needs to look into is the revenues, right? So the commercials bit of it is massive. We are in process of securing all the 6 franchisees for season 1. 4 out of the 6 franchisees already sealed in. So we're looking at good names coming from the industry. It's a mix of conglomerates from media and entertainment. We're looking at the steel industry. We're looking at the Bollywood celebrity angle. Thankfully, we've got it, because with the success of Kabaddi, a lot of people actually who had missed the bus there wanted to join the bandwagon here, and that was fabulous. So we're looking at good names. The idea is that, a firm belief of mine is that a successful and a healthy franchisee is equal to a successful and healthy league. And from that perspective, we've been very cognizant of the fact that we need the right stakeholders who join in as the family and take us through, right? We're also looking at, of course, the technical side of it from sports tech infusion into TV production. So that's been a great journey for us. We've been in touch with multiple developers across the world, understanding what is the other sports tech happening in the US with NFL, NBA, and so on and so forth. Because it's a tag game, so there's a lot that can be done in order to create that stickiness on television, right, from a tech advancement standpoint. So yeah, that's pretty much on a day-to-day basis. There are multiple other things, of course, which we look into from a broadcaster standpoint, right? That's the biggest thing which I didn't speak of, but that's the last of the thing, which is the larger piece of licensing with the broadcaster, understanding what the creative duties are, understanding which channels which we need to put into. Because again, Kho Kho is, as I call, is favorable in the Bharat segment, right? It's a very, very rural game. So we need to be very particular about which channels do we pick up, plus the OTT bit of it. We're also looking at sort of how do we do a non-exclusive OTT deal with the likes of other OTT platforms like YouTube and so on and so forth. So yeah, there've been multiple things from a generation of revenue generation standpoint. So that is pretty much what it entails on a day-to-day basis. These are the short forms of it.
What was it for you specifically running your own league? I mean, it's another ball game altogether, and especially with a sport like Kho Kho. What was it about Kho Kho that enticed you?
See, I have been part of non-cricketing sports ever since, all throughout my career. If you see, I was a professional cricketer back in Delhi, way back in late 90s. But I decided at the very beginning that I'll not be professionally dealing with the business side of cricket. Maybe because it's, the non-cricketing side is much more challenging. So I started off my career with golf, did about 13 years of golf, upwards of 1,000 events, maybe across the pro tour, amateur tour, junior, corporate ladies, so on and so forth. Did a bit of celebrity management, all of that. And then when I understood, there's a sense of excitement selling non-cricketing genre in India, especially. And if you sold golf, it's a different ballgame altogether, because pretty much it's the slowest sport on television. And this is where the Indian side of it. So while I was launching 10 Golf in 10 Sports and garnering sort of TV viewership for them and the subscriber base, I understood that let's continue that journey. And while in EY as the sports advisory head, I was dealing with multiple other pieces of fan engagement in LATAM and some smart stadiums in Europe and so on and so forth. Kho Kho came about, of course. We understood while sort of deep diving into the viewership of non-cricketing sports had grown almost 18-19% in 2018, right? That was humongous, of course, thanks to pro Kabaddi, wrestling, volleyball, so on and so forth. They've been massive influx, and there was a growth coming in. So for us, what was important was that cricket, of course, took the lion's share of viewership in India. So the first thing which was very important for us to understand was that how is Kho Kho on ground, right? So there are two perspectives. It's on ground and on television. Does it have the spectacle, the sense of spectacle? So I actually traveled across to this place called Ichulkaranji in Kolhapur to see. It's pretty much the hub of Kho Kho in Maharashtra. And Maharashtra boys have gotten about 17 gold medals in 2000. The girls have got about 13 odd gold medals. So it's pretty much the place, right? The hub. And there's a huge amount of club culture there. When I went in there, I realized that there were crowds. Firstly, they were playing clay courts. So once you start diving in Kho Kho, the new avatar, you see it. They just keep doing these skydives, which are 2.5 meters across, airborne, right? Exactly like what possibly, if you can remember John T. Rhodes doing that happens every 90 seconds, right? But when they fall into the red mud, it's all dirty, right? So both the teams, you can't segregate it. They all start looking alike. And I saw about 30,000 people there. Right, I'm not kidding. 30,000 people there, not an arena. So they're all standing one behind the other. 5 rupees ticket price. I understood that day that it is a spectacle to watch on ground. So it is definitely now. If we need to be innovative with the packaging of it at this point in time. So that is where. Secondly, the sports properties again. The other bit of that started coming in. From a perspective that how do you commercially utilize it, right? So one was it a spectacle? Yes, it could turn into a spectacle with the skydives and the likes of it. The second part was it monetizable? And that was one of our key criteria. Unlike, say, a football which goes off for 2 halves, here we had a little bit of breaks because there are 4 innings. It's pretty much like a test match, in India, a cricket test match. It is innings, first innings, second innings, break, second innings, third innings, right? So that's how that goes in. And we thought that there was a huge amount of monetizable opportunities there, which of course, from the commercial break standpoint, we thought that, it makes a lot of sense from that perspective. The other part was that the favor or the massive fan following which the sport enjoys in the hinterland gave us an opportunity to realize that if we can take care of the masses, then I think we're looking at good numbers coming from television viewership, which effectively left us with understanding how do we tackle with the rural audience. And that's pretty much going to be our year one agenda to excite the rural audiences, because we know that the masses of India are going to support the sport. Of course, there are a couple of options. One is that everybody has played Kho Kho at one point, so there's a sense of nostalgia to it, right? So everybody, as soon as you talk about Kho Kho, they do go back there. And so from that perspective, I think these are the three areas where we are sort of focusing at this point in time.
Makes sense. Now, given that India is, a country with a plethora of leagues at this point, so what does this league intend to do to make it different from other leagues? Of course, the sport is different and all of the elements are going to be extremely different, which are taken into consideration. But what is going to be the crux, without giving away too much, of course, as to how this is going to be differing from the other leagues that we have, and just to entice the masses?
See, again, as I said, there is going to be a cosmetic makeover of Kho Kho. We have seen it in the past with the influx of other leagues. There has to be a sense of, I think one of the key areas which I find is that India has been predominantly a team sport loving nation. Individual sports, with all due respect to them, and as much as I love them personally, India doesn't follow them. You need to be one star and then you start maybe having a fan following. But we've been predominantly a team sport following nation. Yeah. That is one. Two is that it has to be high speed, right? Because of the crunch of time today. And number three, and the biggest thing which I feel, is that you have to attract the 8 to 15-year-old audience. If you manage to get that, then I think you've got a case in hand, right? You've got a success story written to it. Now, how do you do that? So the first thing which we sort of wanted to differentiate ourselves was that, and surely from a natural organic standpoint, is the rules of this particular sport, right? It is a simple run and chase format. It's got no rocket science to it. So for an 8 to 15-year-old, they understand the concept very, very clearly. It is three people who are running in, and there's one person who's chasing it. It's a team of 9, and they just keep running. Now that is one part. Now, when we got into that bit, we thought that, okay, this then eases out the rules bit of it. So it's very easy to understand, but it is fast. Now, for it to become monotonous, it's fairly easy now because they just keep running and chasing. Second thing in the kitty was the fact that how do we bring a little bit of an innovation there? And what we did was we got this one player who in the center, as soon as the match starts, will become the trump card of the team, which we've called him as the Wazir. Now, what happens in Kho Kho is that as soon as you get up, you can go straight and turn left, either sides of the flank. But in this case, the Wazir can go straight and turn either right or left. Now, what that brings, and we tried it in Tal Katora, and it was a fabulous experience. And it was the first time for the players as well, right? The coaches as well. So they did not mind that Wazir will be wearing a different jersey, and Wazir in the literal sense will be the strategist of the team. So as soon as that started, the whole strategy of the team with the runners, they could not understand. Earlier, the dodges were in a certain fashion because that's been played for the last 60 years. Now, suddenly, you give a little bit of a twist, a fine twist, and boom, we had almost 35% increase in the matches, the scores, points being scored, which effectively got us to close finishes, which effectively got us into sort of, shall I say, the edge of the seat action scenario, nail-biting finishes. And whatever I said in the past, the first 2-3 points, it suddenly married the whole concept together and made it a 8 to 60-year-old property. So an 8-year-old to a 60-year-old together can now sit and watch because it is pretty much like a drama happening on court, right? And that one little tweak has given us a lot of freedom to sort of play around with. Of course, this clubbed with we will be looking at a few technological advancements, as I mentioned earlier. Few very nice thoughts that we have in terms of educating the younger audiences from a tech perspective, but they will not be statistics. So, there's a difference between how many runs did I score in, say, for example, cricket? How many runs did I score? What's my average? What's my strike rate? All of those are very mathematical. Not every other person understands, or maybe does not want to understand. He or she likes the play. So today, if I were to give in Virat Kohli's personal stats, from his height to the way he jumps, how much of area does he covers? How much of running has he done in one game? How many kilometers has he ran? So all of those things is what we are looking at, simplifying and bringing the audience closer to us in order to fall in love with Kho Kho. So these are a few very interesting but very simple advancements that we believe that is going to create and sort of rebuild the nostalgic value which Kho Kho already has.
How do you plan to make the league and subsequently the sport sustainable?
See, the vision of the sport of the sustainability actually comes via a couple of scenarios. One is that every other sport in India, more often than not, worries about one big thing, which is grassroots development, right? Expanse of this particular sport is humongous. You go down south, again, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, massive. Go slightly on the eastern side, Odisha, Jharkhand, Bihar. It's all pretty much packed, Gujarat. Punjab, again, there was this article which I was reading the other day where there was this school tournament and 1,200 schools came in with Kho Kho teams, both men and women, boys and girls, each compelling of almost 15 kids, right? That's the squad of a 15-member squad of Kho Kho. And it was in a small district called Sangrur in Punjab. Right. So from a sustainable standpoint, what has happened is as the sport keeps on building itself, and now with the influx of Kho Kho being a part of a representative sport in Asian Games, the government, of course, has been working on that. Khelo India has included this in the first 16 sport which joined in the inaugural Khelo India, erstwhile Sports Minister Colonel Rathore, and now Honorable Sports Minister Kiran Rijiju. In fact, we just had a press conference with him because India got its first Arjuna awardee in Sarika Kale, Indian Kho Kho player. So there's been a huge support from the government also in order to promoting indigenous sport. And we believe that is going to be one of the key milestones for us to sort of develop. And of course, the Federation is doing fabulous. That is as far as the grassroots is concerned. The other part is the professional side of it, which is the league bit of it, wherein my investor and myself, we are very, very clear of the fact that we need to make this a financially viable property for all the teams who are joining in, all our stakeholders, for which what we've been very sort of, again, cognizant of from day one was the financial model of it. A lot of leagues in India, which have, of course, if I would pretty much count it on my fingertips, but still, again, about 15 odd leagues, 15 to 20 odd leagues ever since. And I'm saying all sorts of leagues, whether there were leagues with the federation or whether there were parallel leagues. You know how it works in India, right? There's been a huge amount of these properties which have come about. A lot of people have put in their money. They see the light of the day, maybe year one, year two, and then they go on in the dark. Now, there are two reasons to it. One is, of course, the sport itself was maybe never meant to be a league, because not every sport can be converted into a league, right? You have to have that television impact. Hence, you get your ad sales revenues, which in our term would be sponsorships. And then slowly the wheel starts churning. So that bit has been very, very important for us. And we have created a financially viable product for our franchises, which is a low-cost model. And we're going to start off with the 2-venue piece. So it's not very heavy on the pocket for a franchisee. Most of the leagues right now are running on either a caravan style or a home and away style. But we don't intend to do that from year one. There is no requirement. Although we understand that Kho Kho enjoys this massive popularity, wherever you go, you will get a full packed stadium, maybe chants going outside the stadium. And that we've seen it, right? As I said, Ichal Karanchi, you go to Madhya Pradesh, you go to Ranchi, anywhere, it's just packed. And this is just an open air clay court, right? You're not talking about ticketed with fancy lights and celebrities going. But we're keeping it very simple for the franchise for the first 2-3 years so that it's lesser load on their P&L, on their bottom line. And once they start getting the pulse correct with their franchises, with their respective regions, they start creating their base in the catchment area. We slowly and steadily start expanding the model. And then eventually we get into a caravan style. And then, of course, everybody starts. So you start hitting the green in your P&L. You start, the return of your revenue is slightly faster than compared to a lot of other leagues, I must say. And that is something I was very, very clear of, that we will give them that first mover advantage and a little bit of a thrust at the beginning because of the fact that this particular sport enjoys a lot of fan following. So let's utilize that and let's create a parallel business model which supports that fan following.
Interesting. That's great. I have to mention COVID. We are in unprecedented times, in the middle of a pandemic. Of course, that must have changed so many things on your end. But how are you really mapping out these uncharted territories?
See, undoubtedly, and this is also sort of a spillover of the previous question, but my answer would be quite similar to that. But undoubtedly, it has exposed the financial model of a lot of businesses across the world, not only sports. People are reevaluating contracts, agreements. The European sports industry has renegotiated media contracts by dozen. From an EPL standpoint, transfers have been stopped. So, it's just, we've sort of gone in a fast forward way as far as technology is concerned and fan engagement is concerned. And what I'm trying to say is that everybody has become smarter in the last 5.5-6 months in order to understand what is the real value for your buck, which you've been spending all this while. So COVID firstly gave us the understanding of, were we on the right track as far as the financial model was concerned at the beginning itself. And when we look back, we saw that we were always a very lean model, as I mentioned earlier. We were always a very, very lean model. And from that perspective, when we restarted renegotiating with our team owners and contacting them, they were absolutely forthcoming, saying that let's go ahead and let us know when the dates are. So that is a proof enough that we've been sort of cognizant of the financial outlines of the bottom line. So we saw, while the world got impacted, maybe we didn't. So that was one. Two was, of course, we did a lot of the deep state from a player grading standpoint. There's a lot of work which has happened behind the scenes. And as I said, the digitization process of those 500 boys and girls was a big process, I must say, because there was no data. All the data was on paper, right? And getting all of that from the federation, getting that organized and segregating it into 3 segments: a chaser, all-rounder, and a defender. That's how the profile of players goes, and then grading them into A, B, C, depending on the last 3 years national championship, is quite a task. Yeah. So we've done a lot of that in COVID, which has been very, very helpful for us. And thirdly, what we did was, just before COVID had struck, so Kho Kho enjoys a bit of a popularity in Korea, in Southeast Asia, and a bit in London specifically. Yeah. So the Korean team has actually come into India and Gwalior to play. So it was amazing. So we started sort of developing that sport in other countries in Africa, because we want the influx of foreign player coming in and playing this particular sport. So what we did was, we've been getting camps organized in Kenya, Namibia, Zambia, South Africa, a bit in Holland. There is a possibility of a small inter-university championship in London of Kho Kho. There's a dedicated team sitting there, traveling across, and they've been teaching the ropes of Kho Kho. And as a run and chase model, I think it's just fallen on track. So I keep getting requests on our Ultimate Kho Kho Facebook page from various countries, and it's just amazing to see that these guys are saying that can we be part of it? Can we be a professional player? How do I contact my federation? Who is the international federation I can get in touch with? Where can I practice? What does the hard court look like? And so on and so forth. So there's been a lot of those efforts which have come about, and I believe that is going to help us massively when we eventually get the player roster out and imagine so-called mitti ka khel, Bharat ka khel, coming in with say 200 kids who are Indian, and absolutely, so they come from the interiors of India. Cut to, you've got Koreans, Brits, you got a bit of South Africans and coming in. So you got those faces coming in, and then together sort of combining to make a franchise team. It's going to be fabulous. I can't wait to watch it.
Sure. Thank you so much for sharing those insights with us. It brings me to the end of my questions, but this was extremely insightful, and I'm sure everyone who listens to this will be absolutely excited for 2021 for a lot of reasons, but particularly Ultimate Kho Kho too. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ananya. Thank you for getting me here and giving me this opportunity.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Please don't be afraid to reach out and let me know what else and who else you want to listen to next. Also, if you did enjoy this interview, please don't forget to subscribe and rate the podcast India Sportsbiz Talks on your desired podcasting platform. To end the podcast, I'd like to leave you with a quote from Abraham Lincoln. In the end, it's not the years in your life that count, it's the life in your years. Thank you, and until next time, keep the Josh high.